it. That's what I'm talking about. Wait.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
People still believe in higher education, but they don't always see what colleges do for them. Curious why? Me too. Welcome to Pulse Check, the Reputation Rethink, a 5-part series from Ologie. I'm your host, Kibilds, Vice President of Strategy at Ologie, the branding and marketing agency for organizations with missions that matter. In this series, we'll pull the curtain back on our new national study to surface the disconnects shaping higher ed's reputation. We'll hear from experts who are acting on these insights and give you the tools to start shifting reputation through smarter strategy and storytelling. Now, let's get to today's episode. Welcome to episode 4 of the Reputation Rethink. I'm your host, Kibilds. In our first episode, we introduced Ologie's recent national study, the Reputation Rethink, and its most important finding. The public still believes in higher education's value. They just don't see it. People feel disconnected from the impact colleges and universities have on their everyday lives. Each episode since has focused on one of those visibility gaps and what institutions can actually do about it. We talked about making research impact more visible. We talked about demystifying how universities are funded and the role institutions play in creating value for their local communities. In this 4th episode, we're turning to one of your most important and, according to our survey, most underserved audiences, your alumni. Yes, I said underserved. That finding really jumped out at me. In our study, we asked respondents how much they think colleges and universities benefit different groups, including students, communities, regions, and alumni. Only 43% said colleges and universities meaningfully benefit alumni. That's less than half. And the thing is, the majority of the respondents in our survey have college degrees themselves. That's your actual alumni saying that they are the group that is benefited least by their alma mater. And a few quotes from our research really stuck with us. One alum said that colleges and universities tout the importance of degrees, knowing all they do is put young people in debt. Another said, you graduate with loans. You don't graduate with a job. They, meaning you, got what they needed. Your money. That's really tough to hear. To understand why they're feeling this way, we have to look at the reality alumni are living in right now. The promise of higher education is still largely true. On average, a college degree does lead to higher paying jobs, but college costs more than it used to. Graduates carry more debt than they used to, and everything else costs more too. Housing, food, utilities, you name it. At the same time, wages have not kept pace, and for some graduates, employment itself is less stable. New York Fed data from 2023 shows that even fields once considered good bets, like IT and computer engineering, are experiencing elevated unemployment. A 2025 New York Times analysis found that college graduates who lose their jobs are also staying unemployed longer. Many alumni entered college believing they were making a solid investment, so this kind of situation wouldn't happen to them. And for some, that return they were counting on is just not there right now. So what can institutions do to deliver on that value? That's what brings me to my guest today. I've invited Molly Calhoun, President and CEO of the Ohio State University Alumni Association, to share with us her insights on alumni engagement from complementary points of view, one focused on emotional connection and affinity, and the other on practical career-focused support. Welcome to the show, Molly. Thanks, Day. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here because you have like 14 titles. I only named a few. So you're going to offer such an important perspective on our alumni and how we engage them. And I just can't wait for this conversation. So when you hear that only 43% of people believe colleges and universities meaningfully benefit alumni, what resonates from your own experience, from your own alumni communities? Does this feel true or does it surprise you?
It doesn't really surprise me at all. So I can make a correlation between those who engage with the university and then who also feel a mutual benefit. So for Ohio State last year in our fiscal year, 35% of our Ohio State alumni engage with the university some way in time, talent, or treasure. So that's not really that far off from the 43%. So I'm not really that surprised. And you're probably wondering why
why that percentage isn't any higher. Unfortunately, for many years, colleges and universities inadvertently kind of eroded trust from our alumni by quickly leaping into asking and soliciting for money from our alumni instead of really focusing on our relationships. And that turned a lot of people off. Luckily, we have evolved over the years as an industry, and now we're much more focused on that relationship building. But some of the damage is really already done. And so we have a lot of work to do. And so we have to assume that the idea that we just want their money is still out there. When I took this job, my nephew, who is actually a 2-time graduate of Ohio State, called me and said, gosh, do I need to stop taking your phone calls now that you're president and CEO of the Alumni Association? So it's still out there. In fact, just this past year, after I spoke at commencement, I was walking back here to my car and I was walking with a couple parents and we were talking. I said, did you have a son or daughter that graduated? Yes. Telling me all about them, where they're going to be, what they're going to be doing. And they asked me the same thing. And I said, no, I said, actually, I'm a part of the Alumni Association. And the woman said, gosh, she said, I have to tell you, the woman that spoke on behalf of the Alumni Association, she was great. And I said, what resonated with you about her comments? And she said, she never asked for money. She said in 5 minutes of speaking, she never asked for money. So it was kind of fun. She eventually figured out that I was that person who was speaking. So we had a good laugh about all of that. But
you're like, tell me everything, exactly what you liked.
yeah, exactly. Tell me what was important, but very telling, right? I mean, again, it wasn't that generation, but obviously legacy, and you're hearing what your parents are saying. And so there's still this perception that we're just going to call you for money.
And we definitely saw that in the survey results as well, that that's really what alumni associations are there for. And we know that's not true. Where do you think that drop off in value comes from between obviously believing in the value of your education when you're a student and then that kind of shift in mentality to, well, now they just want my money and I get no value in return as alumni?
I think the biggest drop off there is the perceived loss of kind of structure and support after commencement, right? So as a student, you've got all this support around you, career development, career support, professional development. And that's an area that they still really need. But the delivery of that becomes really difficult. When you're here as a student, it's around you all the time. But then once you graduate and you're not on campus anymore, they have different email addresses, they've moved, they've changed their email addresses or their mailing addresses. And they're focusing on different things. They've got jobs. They're moving to new cities. And so it's really difficult for us to make contact with the alumni. But in reality, that's one of the things that we can offer to our new grads is that kind of support. Even moving to new cities, new jobs, new careers, all of those kind of things are ways that we can keep Buckeyes connected. We just have to figure out how to do that in really meaningful and simple ways. And we know we can do this better, absolutely. One of the reasons why I was so excited about coming into this position was I was coming 35 years out of working in student life. And I understood that connection between student engagement and then alumni engagement. We worked really hard in student life to try to make sure that students were involved. And we know that students that are involved are many times much more successful than ones that are not as involved. And so the same thing holds true for when they become alumni. So we want to be there for them, not to just ask money, but instead find the same ways that we supported them as students. We get to continue to help them grow as global citizens, productive people, having great careers. And that's what we want to do as an alumni.
I love that thread to student engagement, right? Because that's where it starts. That's where the value exchange starts. That's where the affinity and the engagement and the connection starts. It's just a unique perspective that I think you bring to your role is, well, the foundation is the same, right? This is an exchange and we are still here to support them. So I love that perspective.
We know that our students right now at Ohio State, that their engagement is growing. So in 2023, about 50% of our students were engaged as students. And now in 2025, it's up to almost 60%. So we're really excited about that opportunity, right? So if that someday will relate to their engagement as alumni, we've got some great opportunities. And it's one of the things that we're working on. What does a student engagement strategy look like? So we're really excited about that opportunity. How do we work with Student Life and other groups on campus to bring that to fruition? And how do we keep them connected so that we don't have to try to get them back years later, we can stay connected with them.
Yeah, it almost feels like what's that handoff, right? So that it's not this, well, they're completely disconnected and how do we get them back, which I know a lot of alumni offices worry about. So in the spirit of kind of continuing that engagement, how do you see alumni currently engaging today? How do they show up most consistently? And what does that tell you about what they value?
Well, I think alumni value connection, right? With the university, with each other, with students, and with the things that they're passionate about. They crave that community and that belonging, the same thing that they've had as students. They really value being informed, right? The highest way that we engage with our alumni today is through communications. So our emails, our newsletters, social media, web pages, all of those things that help find relevance for them and value. Storytelling in particular. They do enjoy the storytelling as opposed to just a transactional outreach to the alumni. And they love our experiential opportunities, right? And lifelong learning. They want to be connected with their peers, not just with our institution, but they show up at events, things that are relevant to things that connect with their identity or their purpose. We have an incredible response to our international tours that we do. We have over 40 a year. And so we know alums want to, and some of those are for newly graduating seniors to seasoned alums. So almost 1,700 people are traveling with us each year. So I know that they want that lifelong experiential learning. They want to learn new things and do it alongside other Buckeyes. We also learned that during COVID, that our alums really value kind of low effort and high value connections, right? And then also, as you can imagine, they also are the at-home kind of activities post-COVID have really been highly valued from our alums. We have programs like Crafternoon where you can apply to get a package of crafts, and then you receive it in the mail, and then you can just hang with your kids for a day and do different Ohio State crafts. And then we have book reading things where summer and winter reading challenges where you can talk to other people online about what are the books that they're reading, what are they enjoying. These are the kinds of things that we get thousands of people online to connect with.
Wow. I love that you mentioned that. You're like reading my mind because as you were mentioning like connection community, I was thinking a little bit about myself, right? And I work from home full time. And as an adult, it's really hard to make friends, right? Like it's really hard to find the third spaces where you're going to hang out and just share time with people. And especially because I moved to where I live just 8 years ago. So how do you make friends when you're almost 40, right? This is just a really unique way to keep people connected to each other because you have something in common, because you have history together, because you have shared and similar values. I love that. Maybe I can join Crafternoon even if I'm not an alumna. And so this brings me to my next question, which is, how has the way that alumni seek to connect evolved over time, right? I'm sure it wasn't always Crafternoon. So what changes have you seen?
The connection and the support that alumni are looking for has not changed, but their expectations on how we deliver it has. So to your point, like they still want to be connected in ways, but how we connect with them has changed. So we historically relied on loyalty and tradition to keep our relationships strong. But really today, our alumni really expect personalization. They want to know that you like to do Crafternoon and maybe somebody else enjoys something different, reading a book. So they want that digital access, those professional opportunities, and a community that they can be a part of. But they want it very individualized. They want to make sure that you know what's important to them. They don't just value the nostalgia. We love all of our nostalgia, but they also want the relationships. So that's really important to them.
And when it's about asking for money, which, at some point will happen in their relationship, right? I think what you're saying makes me think, that obligation reason to give is probably not working anymore. Like give back or, even give forward feels strange in today's landscape based on how they're feeling just kind of completely left out of the labor market and so on. So it's this exchange that then might help them feel more prone, right, to supporting the university in the future.
Right. I mean, we'd love for them to give us money, right? But that's not what's important. What's important for us today is their connection with the university. Maybe someday that they'll find something that they're passionate about here at Ohio State and they'll want to support it in a way financially. But what's more important is how they give us their time and talent to start with, right? What does that look like? How do they connect with us? What are all the many things? We have alumni across the world, right? And all of the states in 175 countries, I think at last count. So we've got international alumni clubs. We've got micro mentoring tours, tools that you can do online. So all those different ways for our alums to connect, either virtually or in person. Those are the things that we want to do. And that's what alums are looking for. They want it very specific to what they're looking for and what they need at that particular time in their life.
I want to touch on something super specific that came from our study, which is the way that alumni are feeling in the current state of the labor market. And we're talking about connection, and that is great. But when they're in these kind of career crises moments, right? I don't think any alum out there is expecting their alma mater to find them a job, right? But they are looking for support. They are looking for someone to help them move forward and navigate maybe a difficult career moment. So in your experience, what types of support actually moves the needle in that way?
Like you said, they're really looking for things that will help them reduce uncertainty, increase agency, and things that will make the biggest difference. That is not just one big intervention. It's really they need a system of small, consistent support that will keep them moving. So they don't just need a job listing, right? They can get that anywhere. They need career navigation. They need guidance on what to do, how to do it. They need help with identifying how to apply transferable skills, right? Their jobs may be pivoting. They may be moving from one thing to another. So how do we help them with that career pivot? How do we help them with those transferable skills and understanding that? They want workshops on negotiating and interviewing and storytelling, being able to tell their own story, who they are and what they're looking for. And then they want guidance from people who are going through the exact same thing that they are, peers in the industry, people who are doing the exact same thing. They want those kind of things. And then they want to be able to upskill as well, right? Things that are relevant. So how can they keep a pulse on what's happening in their industry or perhaps a new industry that they're looking for? So those are all things that are really important to them. Once they get some of those things, it's also important for us to help them build the confidence that they need around some of those things and reinforce their own identity. So offering them opportunities to mentor students, to go to a class and speak in a class, serve on an advisory board. Those are all ways that they can share their expertise, and that also helps them build confidence.
Oh, I love that. I want to say that's so sweet. It is, right? It's, you are an expert in your field. You have gotten to this point in your career, and whatever situation is affecting you because of the labor market, that's not you, right? I love that as a confidence building opportunity is to help them share what they know. That is fantastic. If those are the things that move the needle, what doesn't, right? Because some of our listeners are probably thinking, well, there's all these initiatives we could do or we want to do. In your experience, what hasn't actually worked as well as you might have imagined?
Yeah, this may not be the most popular answer, but one-to-one career coaching and one-to-one mentoring sounds great in theory, but they don't move the needle. We're never going to be able to reach 60,000 students and 630,000 alumni, right? So these delivery methods also aren't what we're hearing current generations are looking for. Students want quick, bite-sized information from many sources, right? The same way that they're using AI. They want broad network of varying perspectives. They want us to be embracing technology to help deliver those little bites of experiences that the audiences need. And so that gives us a much greater reach. We can't assume that every student experience is a positive one. So we have to stay pertinent to what's important to them and help them along in small little bits and pieces and give them the ability to make the decisions and move themselves.
So I'm sure that there's a collective sigh of relief when people heard you don't need to have one-on-one coaching available. But you're right. I mean, just the way that we learn today, right? We might watch a YouTube video to quickly learn how to do something. We might engage in some sort of kind of live Q&A discussion when we're asking questions that are super specific to our situation. It doesn't need to be a 1-hour coaching appointment with someone. And in fact, I can imagine like the cognitive load of preparing for something like that or even setting something like that up I'm not surprised that maybe that doesn't work as we think it should.
Well, that, some of the technology that we were talking about, what we have is something called Buckeye Connect. So this is a platform where students can go online and they can ask questions of alumni. We match them through what we know about the alumni. We can match them with students, right? So I'll give you a couple examples. We had a student who was going to graduate and who was trying to get into a highly competitive orthodontic residency, right? So they went online and they were at this moment where they were trying to figure out what do they need to do for their application process. So they wrote into here and they were asking that question. What do they need? They didn't need a long-term mentor, but they needed some help on what to do next. And within days, they were connected with another alum who was able to say to them, oh, this is great. This is what you need. Your application is important. Your academic performance is important. But what you really need to look at is shadowing and extracurricular activities. And then they offered and said, I'm happy to connect with you if you'd like to, and I'm happy to have you shadow me. So those kind of opportunities, right? It could be a one and done that the alum could have said, here's the information. And the student could have said, thank you very much. Or it could be a longer term. So depending on what that student's looking for, there's an alum there hoping to help, or it could be alum to alum as well.
I just had an aha moment. Of course, leverage your own network for this kind of support, right? It's said often, right? The alumni network, the connections, great. But who facilitates that? Like, where do you find your fellow alumni? And that's essentially something the Alumni Association could stand up some sort of mechanism to do that. And you yourself don't have to have the coaches. You yourself don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have the mechanism through which people connect.
Yeah, it's great when we can use our 630,000 alumni to help the other 630,000 alumni.
Exactly. It's the magnitude of that is impossible to try to replicate internally with staff, right? So some great examples of when alumni are engaged, what can happen. And to your point, when they are engaged, they can benefit from these resources. They eventually turn into partners and supporters of the institution. But what happens when we didn't engage them, when we didn't catch them as new alumni, or they for some reason have stopped engaging? How do you try to reactivate their relationship with the university?
I think it's reactivate and or just get them engaged. Again, if only 43% are engaged, then we have a whole lot that aren't engaged. So that we have a whole group of people who are working on that part of what we call their journey, right? We have a continuum that we've kind of outlined to describe where our alums are in that phase. It's almost like a marketing funnel. And it gives you an idea. Are you unaware? Are you aware? Are you learning a little bit? Are you participating? And so we're trying to help the alums move through that continuum. And so that beginning phases. So when you're not aware, or you just learn, you know a little bit about Ohio State, but you're not engaged. Most of the team right now is doing most of that on social media, right? And through digital ways of connecting, because that's where we can find them. And then we have the opportunity to figure out what it is that is important to them. What are they clicking on? What are they scrolling through? What are they stopping to look at? And then we've got a better idea where we can better target exactly what it is that they're looking for. Again, more personal, more relevant to what they are, where they are in their life, and what is interesting to them at that moment. So those are some of the things right now. It's that early engagement through really social media and digital platforms that we're able to engage with some of those people who maybe haven't talked to us for a while, who aren't engaged, or who never were.
That's such a smart way to do it, because that's where their day-to-day lives are, right? And I think the key is universities to figure out how they fit into their alumni's lives versus just always talking about yourself. And they might not have a reason to connect to that.
And we want to be there for them for their entire journey, right? So we've got opportunities from, you could come back as a student and get more degrees and get more certificates, which is really important to many people now, right? Kind of upscaling the work that they're doing currently. We've got a program for 60 and over. So if you're 60 and over, you can come in and audit a class. So again, around that whole lifelong learning, we've got a Young Alumni Academy. So we've got students who are under 30 years old to help them grow as leaders. All of these things in different ways. Wherever you are in your life, we've got opportunities to help you get connected with the university and to help you grow as a person.
Yeah, and it's that value exchange again, which I think is really what they're looking for, right? It's continuing that relationship they had as students. Okay, let's stream a little bit. If resources were not a constraint, Molly, what's one thing that you would build to fundamentally change how alumni experience value from the university?
I'm not sure that this is a verb or a noun, but I would say Amazonify. Imagine a technology that would allow us to understand each of our Buckeyes' interests, their needs, their communication preferences, their life milestones, all those things, and then translate that into understanding meaningful, tailored experiences that they're looking for. So that's really, we have so much to offer, but the hard part is connecting each person with the right offering at the right time. So if we could find a more way like Amazon does to find those ways to make it easy and give you options, for wherever you are in your career, in your life, and that could make a huge difference in terms of making sure that we have the right experience at the right time. So if you were moving to London, and you needed to meet some people, how do we quickly connect you there? Navigating a career change and you need to get in touch with your a resume in a different way, and we can connect you with a career coach. Or you're just struggling to navigate caring for an aging parent while trying to balance your own family. We have Age-Friendly Innovation Center that we can connect you with immediately, right? You have a family member who's diagnosed with Parkinson's, or cancer. We've got places for classes and support groups. So all those things. So how do we get that to you very timely, very quickly, and know enough about you, just like Amazon does?
Yeah. And I mean, this is the thing we need to leverage the 630,000 resources. And then all the resources of the university too. Every professor, every center, every resource. I think we'll get there with AI at some point, I think.
Yep, I think we will. We're working on it. We're certainly working on it. And we've got lots of tools that we continue to use. Like you said, the platforms that are out there, we don't necessarily have to do every single thing, make every connection ourselves. There are platforms, there's technology. AI is really becoming pertinent in terms of what we're doing and how we do our business. And that's important. That's what the students coming out of here are expecting. So we're adapting and making that possible.
Well, thank you so much, Molly, for all of this work that you're doing and also for coming here and sharing it with us. Do you have any final words that you want to share with listeners as we wrap up?
We talk about here that the Alumni Association here at Ohio State, it was formed 1 year after the first 6 graduates graduated from Ohio State University, right? So we didn't start an Alumni Association because of all this tradition that we had. It was started by 6 graduates. And they did this because they had so much gratitude for the experiences that they had here at Ohio State. So, our purpose really hasn't changed since 1870. And that's what we're trying to do, really trying to connect Buckeyes to this community that will fuel their personal growth, their professional growth, and help them make meaningful impact wherever they are.
The thing that you said that I think is the lesson for our listeners is that it isn't one big intervention. It isn't solving their lives. It's continuing that value exchange. We know that their connection to the university makes the university better, but also what are we also continuing to give in return instead of ask?
It is a two-way, mutually beneficial relationship.
We have one more episode coming up in this series. Next week, we'll be diving into our final finding, the public's desire to see colleges and universities be places for ideas, not ideologies. We'll hear directly from students about how they are creating safe spaces for dialogue on their campuses. See you next week.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.